This is East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, I'm Otelli Edwards. Tonight's top stories from East Asia and beyond. Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi visits Kumamoto 1 week after an earthquake that claimed dozens of lives as the disaster-hit prefecture swelters in 40-degree heat. Now, the Korean peninsula is also baking under extreme heat, with both North and South Korea hit by record temperatures. And Myanmar offers its first proof of life in years for detained former leader Aung San Suu Kyi amid international concerns over the 81-year-old's health. Japan and the US reaffirm a commitment to intervene again following their first joint action to boost the yen in 28 years. Also tonight, China has spent decades and billions of dollars on infrastructure to transform the poorest rural regions. Our correspondent visits Guizhou province to see if greater connectivity is delivering lasting changes. And at one of the world's biggest gaming conventions, why Chinese developers are looking abroad to peddle their latest offerings. Japanese Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi is visiting Kumamoto nearly a week after a major earthquake struck the region. Extreme heat is compounding the woes of the survivors, with temperatures reaching 40 degrees Celsius, a record high for the prefecture. Last Tuesday's 7.1 magnitude quake has killed at least 38 people, including one death from apparent heat stroke. More than 46,000 households remain without water, with many facing fuel shortages, including medical and senior care facilities. Now, CNA senior correspondent Michio Ishida, well, she joins us live now from Tokyo. Now, Michio, I believe Ms. Takaichi, she just gave a press conference minutes ago. What came out of that?
Yes, well, Ms. Takaichi is in Kumamoto, and she said that she decided to choose at this time because rescue efforts have wrapped up. And she decided that she did not want to trouble the authorities of Kumamoto as they are currently busy with recovery and reconstruction. So she decided to fly over the site of the destruction, the damage, using a helicopter. And she said that on the ground, she understood that currently heat stroke is a big issue. Actually, in Kumamoto today, it's experienced 40 degrees Celsius, which is the record high for Kumamoto. And the governor of Kumamoto, who Ms. Takaichi met, gave her updates that 38 people died in the earthquake, 150 were injured, 12,000 structures damaged, and 8,000 are evacuated. He said compared to 10 years ago, police, firefighters, self-defense forces were mobilized quickly. If you recall, back in April 2016, big tremors 2 days apart shook Kumamoto, both 7 on the Japanese seismic intensity scale of 7. Mr. Kimura said that portable air conditioners, 300 of them, have been delivered and expects 3,000 in all. Those who cannot live in their homes are sleeping in their cars. Gasoline is in big demand, and he thanked the Takaichi government for responding quickly with supply. But he said Kumamoto this time is experiencing unprecedented hot weather. Evacuation centers, shelters have to be sanitized, need more drinking water, medication, and health checks. And secondly, he said the support for reconstruction of Kumamoto is important, and he wants the Takaichi government to recognize Kumamoto as in a severe disaster state. This recognition enables Kumamoto to receive substantial national subsidy for reconstruction and lighten financial burden on the rural government, and disaster survivors can receive special aid.
And, you know, with this intense heat that's happening, tens of thousands are without water, fuel shortage, as we have mentioned. But Michio, what more? I mean, what kind of support the evacuees, that they need to receive right now?
Well, Basically, if evacuees can reach schools and public facilities that are functioning as evacuation shelters with basic utilities, they can receive daily necessities. But Kumamoto, as in other rural Japan, has a huge aging population, or those over the age of 65. And I've been reading data that over 30% of the population of Kumamoto is over 65. And according to local reports, it's likely these elderly people don't drive and are stuck at home without utilities. But to reach out to these individuals, manpower is limited. Over 45,000 homes are still without tap water. And according to local reports, evacuees are complaining of discomfort as they cannot clean themselves up. There are non-governmental organizations setting up shower and the self-defense force setting up bathtubs, but not everyone has access. Ms. Takaichi said on Tuesday a huge self-defense force vessel will dock in Kumamoto to provide accommodation and medical support, and told evacuees to apply for a spot if they are suffering from chronic illness. And she said that the cities of Uki and Hikawa, the construction of temporary housing has begun and will be ready to accept residents in early September.
Well, sounds like a lot more still needs to be done. Thanks so much for that update on Japan's earthquake. CNA senior correspondent Michio Ishida in Tokyo. Well, neighboring South Korea is also baking under one of its most intense heat waves on record, with extreme temperatures disrupting daily lives and straining public health services. Well, authorities, for one, have urged people to avoid outdoor activities after temperatures climbed above 42 degrees Celsius in the southeastern city of Yangsan, setting a new national record. Well, the relentless heat has gripped the southeastern region of the country for nearly a week now. Heatwave warnings remain in force, with temperatures expected to stay in the high 30s across multiple cities, including Busan and Ulsan. Now, the long-running heatwave has overwhelmed hospitals, cooling centers, and emergency responders, with vulnerable groups, including the elderly and outdoor workers, facing heightened risks. Since midday, nearly 1,800 people have been treated for heat-related illnesses, with 14 suspected heat-related deaths. Now, turning our attention across the border, in North Korea, state media showed crowds flocking to beaches and water parks to escape the scorching temperatures. Heat advisories are expected to remain in effect through the week. Well, experts say that the Mediterranean-style dome of high pressure over the peninsula continues to trap hot air, with little immediate relief expected. But forecasters are watching super typhoon Dolphin, which could determine whether the scorching conditions would intensify or finally ease. Now, a typhoon is usually associated with rain and cooler weather. So why are forecasters warning that super typhoon Dolphin could actually make South Korea even hotter? Well, here is how its path makes all the difference. Super Typhoon Dolphin is currently tracking across the western North Pacific Ocean. While its exact track remains uncertain, forecasters are closely watching two possible scenarios. It could either move towards China or curve towards the Korean peninsula. And if Dolphin passes close to South Korea, it could bring rain, powerful winds, and cooler conditions could provide temporary relief from an ongoing heat wave. But typhoons don't just bring rain, they also reshape wind patterns across the region. Air is drawn into the typhoon and rises through the storm. Well, this circulation can create areas of sinking air over surrounding regions. And as air sinks, it compresses and warms, and that can suppress cloud formation, allowing more sunshine to heat the ground. And that means if Typhoon Dolphin stays farther west, it could prolong or intensify the extreme heat. And that's why meteorologists say the exact track of Super Typhoon Dolphin will be crucial in determining whether South Korea gets relief or even hotter days ahead. Now, Myanmar has offered its first proof of life of Aung San Suu Kyi in years, releasing photos of the detained former leader meeting a Red Cross official. The organization has confirmed one of its delegates visited Ms. Suu Kyi, but it did not disclose details of the discussion. The meeting comes amid long-running concerns over the 81-year-old's health and well-being. While the military-backed government has repeatedly said that she is in good health, independent access to the Nobel laureate remained tightly restricted. Ms. Suu Kyi's son welcomed the Red Cross visit, calling it the first positive development concerning his mother in more than 5 years. But he says he has yet to receive independent confirmation of his mother's health condition. And CNA senior correspondent Leong Wai-Kit on the significance of the timing.
I must point out that this release is quite timely because this is days before Myanmar leader Min Aung Hlaing plans to make a trip to Thailand. Now, we know Thailand has played a very significant role in bridging the gap between Myanmar and ASEAN, and Thai Foreign Minister Sihasak Phuangketkeow had also recently raised the name of Aung San Suu Kyi as a possible benchmark to mark the progress of the Myanmar military. He suggested that access to Aung San Suu Kyi could be seen as progress, and during previous media briefings, Mr. Sihasak had also reminded journalists that when he was in Myanmar, he had met Min Aung Hlaing, and he had recounted what Min Aung Hlaing told him back then. He said something positive is going to happen to Aung San Suu Kyi. And then weeks later, the news of Aung San Suu Kyi being transferred from prison to house arrest was released. So Mr. Sihasak had pointed out these developments, and if you take a step back and see how Thailand is laying this out, it appears that Thailand is slowly priming the way for Myanmar to have a bit of leeway to release Aung San Suu Kyi. Remember, the ASEAN envoy, Ms. Teresa Lazaro, is planning a trip to Myanmar in the second half of the year. Thailand has officially asked Myanmar to give Ms. Lazaro access to Aung San Suu Kyi, and as of now, the Myanmar leadership has yet to deny that request.
Coming up on East Asia tonight, China's AI race is heating up. Alibaba unveils its biggest model yet, taking aim at rivals DeepSeek and Moonshot. Plus, South Korean shares start August on a shaky note as investors dump heavyweight chipmakers, highlighting volatility in the AI trade.
Right in a chaotic moment.
Midnight later tonight here in Thailand, it's too little too late.
And I asked whether there's a political element to it. Nobody can exactly tell you why.
Look, things are never perfect when you're engaged in politics. Each one doing what each one wants.
So what's the United Nations doing amidst this world of supreme chaos?
We're pushing for answers every night on Asia Tonight.
Think you're diversified? You may already own more AI stocks than you think. Why this software engineer quit his 5-figure salary tech job to become a Hokkien Mee hawker. One young entrepreneur's low-cost market test to avoid an expensive mistake. On Money Mind, Wednesday on CNA.
In a world of rising tensions and rapid change, can ASEAN stay united, relevant and competitive?
While the world is fragmenting, at the same time, ASEAN is integrating together.
There's so much that we can offer to the world as a bloc. The potential of energy, AI.
AI is going to be the next big topic. ASEAN can cooperate on AI capability development, deliver real tangible results.
A dialogue on shaping ASEAN's future. Wednesday on CNA.
My ayam penyet is special. The customer feedback is very good.
I want to bring it down to the next generation so that this hawker trade will not die off.
I've been wasted 20 years inside. For hawker, people don't judge. You come and buy food, you also would ask me whether I'm an ex-convict or not.
I'm very grateful. Madam Haja teach me this sambal. Then I feel like, alamak, someone trusted me.
没有人这样炒东西的，再怎么炒，怎么炒，你都没有动到底的。
来拿下来，来，不是这样的，不是这样的。
Today haven't finished frying around 150 kg lot Not okay aja. I came here to train aja. I not come here to work.
Today we are here to judge this new hawker's skill.
Hello again. Great to have your company this Monday. You are just in time for the latest business news with Roland. And Roland, all eyes apparently on the dollar and the dollar yen after Tokyo and Washington apparently intervened on Friday. What happened there?
Yes, the yen is definitely in the spotlight after Japan joined forces with the US to support the Japanese currency. It's a rare move. Last time it happened was 15 years ago. Japanese yen strengthened sharply against the greenback, now trading around the 157 mark. The US and Japan confirmed coordinated currency intervention last week in a rare move to stop the yen slide to fresh 40-year lows. Authorities say they'll take more action if necessary.
私たち、財務省当局として、米国当局として、まさに、無秩序な動きに対しては断固たる措置を取ると、それが実行されると、そしてそれはいつでもその状態であるということを、申し上げているということです。
Earlier, President Donald Trump said the US stepped in to support the Japanese yen as a signal of friendship.
Because we have a good relationship with Japan. We're very strong, very, very strong financially. They are, they have a weakening yen, and they wanted a little bit of help. And we're always there for Japan. Japan's been very good to us, with the exception, of course, of Pearl Harbor.
Mr. President,
they were not good.
What is the U.S. getting out of that arrangement?
Financial benefit. Financial benefit. It's also good for the world economy.
The joint intervention is the first since 2011. The currency's weakness has pushed up import prices and inflation, dealing a blow to Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's approval ratings. Reuters reports that Japan may have spent as much as $59 billion on Thursday to prop up its currency ahead of the BOJ meeting, when interest rates were held steady. It was suspected to have intervened again the next day. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was then seen with a notepad indicating he intends to buy $5 to $10 billion of yen. The strengthening yen is hitting the Nikkei 225, falling from a one-week high. Japan's short-dated bond yields climbed as investors increased bets of an early Bank of Japan rate hike. The two-year yield is the most sensitive to BOJ policy. Automakers among the biggest laggards, as a stronger yen reduces the value of overseas revenue for heavyweight exporters. Now, Toyota dropped 3.4% and Suzuki down 6.7%. Japanese chip-linked heavyweights also declining, with Tokyo Electron down 0.9% and Advantes sliding 3.3%. For more of the story, we're joined now by Louise Liu, who is Head of Asia Economics at Oxford Economics. Louise, good to have you on the show. So why is Washington getting involved? I mean, what does Washington gain from helping Tokyo strengthen its currency?
Hey, good evening. Happy Monday. Well, this is really a developing story. It's a little bit of a he says, she says. I suppose President Trump has used many interesting words in, his tenure. Friendship is the word he used here, suggesting allies are helping each other prop up their currencies. I think that's true, but, one of the key reasons why there is this coordinated FX intervention is really that it is also serving the U.S.'s self-interest, right? Japan is a big holder of U.S. Treasuries, to the extent that if it's selling U.S. Treasuries to defend the yen, then you could see U.S. Treasuries, kind of the yields going up, and that has a knock-on effect on domestic, mortgage rates, etc. So I think there is a self-preservation element here, and that's really why the U.S. is stepping in at this time.
Were fears of a disorderly unwinding of the yen-funded carry trade in the global markets, was that another factor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the there are a lot of domestic dynamics that are at play here in Japan that, has the risk of triggering some of these disorderly movements. When you think about fiscal policy, the uncertainty around that in Japan, you think about the pace and the extent of BOJ rate hikes, you think about the concerns that markets have that BOJ, the Bank of Japan, may be behind the curve. All of these concerns, each of them are by themselves a trigger for some of these disorderly movements. And you add to that the risk that policymakers may just start selling US treasuries to defend the currency. There is a certain heightened risk of that. And so I think all of that, is preemptive FX intervention that we saw last week. Of course, they've pledged to do more to the extent that that's needed. So we could continue to see more actions to come.
Has it worked, the intervention? I mean, the initial action did drive the yen from above 163 to around 156.57 today.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's constructive temporarily. At the end of the day, it's policymakers against the markets, right? And if the markets decides to move in a certain way, it's quite hard to move against that, which is why, our view is that the yen is going to be structurally weak. What the intervention does is to buy time for the Bank of Japan to adopt a pretty gradual way of normalizing their rates, which I think, is perhaps quite a good outcome considering the different pressures.
So what should investors be watching out for now? Is it a sustained move below that 155 mark or faster BOJ tightening? At what point would further intervention become likely again?
Well, I think to the extent that we have the Bank of Japan possibly only raising rates in Q4 this year, and the Fed, staying on pause. The other factor that we didn't mention is that the Fed under Chairman Walsh is becoming more and more opaque, right? So there is a greater element of uncertainty there as well. So I think investors should probably be watching out for, the pace of intervention. I think there will be continued intervention because the currency is on a weak side, and there's a weak bias to that. I think investors should probably also look out for some of these monthly prints that we as economists track quite often, inflation prints. These are the things that would signal whether or not there will be a movement in the reaction function of Bank of Japan. In Japan, we are also closely monitoring, what Prime Minister Takaichi is saying about, the fiscal expansionary plans that she has. That we know traditionally over the last 2 years has worried investors and could continue to unnerve them as well.
And speaking of intervention, can intervention actually work without a policy shift? I mean, some market analysts argue that the yen appreciation need three things to happen: faster BOJ normalization, lower US yields, as well as greater fiscal restraint. But Takaichi seems to be expansionary in nature.
I think she is coming to the office with a pretty fiscally aggressive plan. To the extent that we think that would lead to implementation, I think her hands are quite a bit tight here. There is a risk that the BOJ might be pushed to hike faster. So I think one of those three factors that you mentioned, some of those could move. But fundamentally, I do agree that intervention is at best a temporary measure until there is a structural change in the underlying policies. So, to the extent that we think that intervention has worked, you did mention that this is the first intervention since 2011. So this is quite a rare occasion, but it also means that investors are very much, the risk of a one-way bet on a currency is basically removed now. So to the extent that tail risk is perhaps not quite as possible now as it was maybe a few weeks ago.
Louise, appreciate your take on the Japanese currency. That was Louise Liu, head of Asia Economics at Oxford Economics. Hong Kong officially launched 5-year offshore Chinese government bonds, or CGBs, futures today, marking a major step to boost offshore yuan use and to give foreign investors a new hedging tool. September futures on 5-year Chinese government bonds opened at 106.685 yuan per contract. It is currently trading 107.64. That's up 0.89 in yield. Now, each contract is worth some 500,000 yuan. That's about $74,000 US. The contracts are traded and settled in renminbi. The launch marks China's third attempt to introduce the hedging tool after a short-lived trial in 2016. 2017 and another aborted plan in 2023. It is part of China's broader push to attract foreign investors to the world's second largest bond market and to advance the international use of the yuan. The move follows measures over the past year to expand foreign access, including limited participation in offshore futures trading, as well as to allow bonds to be used as collateral for short-term loans. A competition in China's artificial intelligence race is heating up. Alibaba has unveiled what it says is the largest and most capable AI model, Qwen 3.8 Max, claiming it performs almost on par with domestic rivals Moonshot AI's Kimi K3, launched last month. The Qwen 3.8 Max features 2.4 trillion parameters. That's the measure of an AI model's capacity to learn and to perform tasks. It can also process up to 1 million tokens, that's chunks of data at a time. The model will be released as an open source next week through Alibaba Cloud's Model Studio platform. The launch follows a string of new AI models from Chinese rivals, including Moonshot's Kimi K3 and DeepSeek. Alibaba says benchmark tests show that Qwen 3.8 Max is broadly competitive with models from OpenAI and Anthropic. Chinese tech firms are locked in a fierce race to build more powerful AI systems while keeping costs under control. Alibaba shares leading gains across Hong Kong-listed tech stocks, surging more than 7% earlier, ending the day 6.8% in Hong Kong. Baidu, Tencent, also tracking positive gains. South Korea's Kospi slipped again following Friday's record-beating rally, with heavyweight chip makers facing sell-offs. The Kospi index dropped 5.1% today, with Samsung and SK Hynix closing down nearly 9%. Experts say the reversal underscores the fragile sentiment around AI investment and the outsized influence of leveraged retail bets on the heavyweight chip makers. Global investors who bought a record amount of shares on Friday drove today's sell-off, unloading around $2 billion worth of stock. And that is the latest in business. Oteli.
Thanks so very much for that, Roland. Well, on that note, let's go for a break now. But coming up on East Asia tonight, how China's rural communities have transformed after decades of connectivity investments.
The weather, brought to you by Trafalgar.
Of course, we saw landmarks, but it was the moments we didn't plan that we knew would stay with us. Trafalgar River Cruises sail a great story.
Biodiversity is booming, which is inviting for some local foragers and farmers who embrace edible wildlife.
We're the largest organic banana grower in Singapore.
This is a jam.
Amazing. Yeah. So the mulberries are from the garden.
No, that's delicious.
Singapore is ramping up conservation efforts locally and across the region.
I really do love reptiles and finding out about them, so I really love my job.
Building must relate to the lives of the people.
目前还是一直要创新一些新的东西，我也不希望是人家把我看作是80岁的人。
There are those who dare to be different, who have made their mark in Singapore and beyond.
You have such big dreams, you know, you want to change the world with your art.
Obviously, every fighter wants to win, so all you can do is to prepare yourself to win.
This is East Asia Tonight, and here are the headlines we're following. Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi visits Kumamoto 1 week after an earthquake that claimed dozens of lives, as a disaster-hit prefecture swelters in 40-degree heat. The Korean Peninsula is also baking under extreme heat, with both North and South Korea hit by record temperatures. And Myanmar offers its first proof of life in years for detained former leader Aung San Suu Kyi, amid international concerns over the 81-year-old's health. China's southwestern province of Guizhou has spent decades investing in infrastructure with a goal to transform one of the country's poorest regions. Now, as new opportunities emerge in tourism and e-commerce, CNA's Tan Si-hui traveled there to see whether greater connectivity is delivering lasting change in the first of our two-part series on China's rural revitalization drive.
It's the world's highest bridge, rising 625 meters above the river below and stretching nearly 2.9 kilometers. Since opening last year, the Huajiang Gorge Bridge has become a symbol of Guizhou's decades-long effort to overcome its mountainous terrain.
Looking over the Huajiang Gorge Bridge, the sheer scale of the canyon below comes into view. And from this vantage point, you can really see how connectivity has changed what was once a remote and hard-to-reach region. Today, the bridge not only spans a canyon, it connects people to jobs, tourism, and new opportunities.
The bridge has cut travel times across the gorge, making nearby towns and villages easier to reach. This has been matched by better digital connectivity. China Mobile, working with Huawei, expanded 4G and 5G coverage to parts of Guizhou once difficult to serve. But rolling that out across the rugged karst landscape was not easy.
因为我们在设备搬运过程，还有基站的安装、调试、开通，都会面临着高风险。我们都是通过那个无人机调运的方式来进行调运的。
After years working in Yunnan province and elsewhere in Guizhou, 36-year-old Lin Guoquan returned to his village and opened a homestay near the new bridge. It has grown from 9 guest rooms to more than 50 in less than a year.
老板，你可以就是让我看你的民宿在哪儿？
就是你看，就是村子中间有一个游泳池那里，蓝色游泳池那里。是的。我们是一个很多楼围成一个院子。
然后网络覆盖之后，对你的生意有什么影响？
那是以前是电话都打不通的地方，以前想都不敢想的。就像这个网络通讯过来了之后，能够把全世界的那个客人吸引过来，就把我们这里传出去。然后这个桥通了之后，他从桥上到我们家只需要8分钟。
Nearby, Tianlong Tunpu village is turning culture into commerce. Known for its centuries-old stone architecture and traditional DC opera. Residents now live stream cultural performances, showcase traditional crafts, and sell local agricultural products online. Visitor numbers nearly tripled in the first 4 months of this year, compared with a year ago.
人均年收入就是还是提高了很多，因为以前的话，可以说咱们这边是农民比较居多，大家还是以农作物为主。那现在5G 互联网接入，那 来旅游的人越来越多的之后啦，大家其实也可以看到有更多的一个收入方式。
But observers say Guizhou's transformation goes beyond connectivity.
The combination of the public sector will, readiness of the private sector to provide the breakthrough technology, investment in the infrastructure, this is something that we can replicate in other national business systems.
Guizhou is also emerging as one of China's leading big data hubs. It became the first pilot zone to boost big data development in 2015.
It has essentially established the biggest data industry, data processing industry, and many companies have profited from it. The government see that as a starting point to attract more of the service industry that's targeting the manufacturing sector. I believe that the central government will continue to put more resources in the western region of China, but learning from Guizhou is a bit difficult.
But as China's economy slows, analysts say the next challenge is turning years of infrastructure investment into sustained economic growth.
Well, we've got reporter Sihui herself joining us live now from Beijing, together with Crystal Chia in Shanghai. First to you, Sihui. Now, both of you and Crystal, you guys did this two-part story on rural revitalisation. And the thing is, we often associate rural China with aging population and, young people leaving for the cities. But somehow your stories show quite the opposite. So I'm curious to know what's driving this shift.
Yeah, that's right. So maybe before we go into what's driving that shift, we want to understand what rural revitalization is. It's quite a bit of a term. Sounds a bit lofty, but what it really is part of a goal for China to make villages more livable, to work, to live, and to play. It's really part of a poverty alleviation campaign in 2017, and the goal is to narrow that gap between the countryside as well as the cities. And that story that you just saw, I went to Guizhou. It is a perfect example of rural revitalization in action. We saw how Guizhou was previously a very poor province. You saw undulating mountains, mountaintops, and so it was really very hard to reach terrain. And so in the late 90s, we saw aggressive infrastructure, and in the 2010s, you can really see physical infrastructure being built, physical connectivity. And when I was there, I was at the world's highest bridge, the Huaqiang Gorge Bridge. I was there on a high ropes course with many other tourists. Tourists also there to do many other activities. They were walking on transparent glass panels. There was also a cafe high up in the air. And so that really shows how these infrastructure has brought about tourism, jobs, higher income, just like how the homestay owner, he had returned to his village because of the infrastructure connectivity that he saw being brought about by the bridges and the physical infrastructure. And then in 2015, we saw digital connectivity being improved as Chinese President Xi Jinping had encouraged AI industry-related activities and jobs being pushed. But really, what we want to see and what we want to hear from as well is Crystal, whose story will come out tomorrow at Yiwu Village. She went over there, Yiwu City rather, to Lizu Village. I want to hear what is the conditions over there and what's the history of that village. Is it very much a similar story to mine?
So Yiwu is known as a manufacturing hub, but like your story as well, there is a village, Lizu Village. There, the village has turned culture into commerce. So in the past, the village was poor. It was said to have dead-end prospects. Its remote location meant that people could hardly get to it. But that's all changed now. Half of its population is now below the age of 35. Now, these young people, they have moved to the village to start their own business. They are selling coffee, wine, and traditional crafts. But for me to really understand how the village has changed over the years, I needed to speak to an elderly resident, and I spoke to Mr. Fang, a retired teacher. Now, on the spur of the moment, we were walking around the village, and under the hot sun, I wanted to get a cup of iced coffee to cool down. So we walked into a random cafe, and he suddenly told me that was his old home. Now, let's have a listen at what he has to say.
这里就是一个粉坑，那边是一个猪栏，这里呢是一个国灶，后来呢我们翻新过了，翻新过这里。 大学生，清华大学大学生下来创业了。我看了这个咖啡厅以后，跟以前比起来呀，相差远了。我想都想不到，装修的这么好，对吗？这都表明了青年人下乡来创业不容易，辛辛苦苦，他们也付出了多多少少的心血，才能够达到这个样子。难怪他们了不起。
Oh, that's certainly a very cozy-looking cafe. These are certainly encouraging stories. But Sihui, I'm sure there are challenges, right? I mean, that still remain. If, say, these places want to sustain this momentum of getting young people to, come back and work, for instance.
And most definitely for Guizhou, the infrastructure, physical infrastructure as well as the digital infrastructure, well, they cost a lot of money. In fact, Guizhou has become one of China's most indebted regions. Outstanding debt in 2024 accounted for more than 70% of the region's GDP. So there are a lot of questions about whether the region can move beyond infrastructure-led growth to become financially sustainable. And analysts say transformation for now still looks sustainable as Chinese industries are still moving up the value chain. But new industries like data centers, as I had mentioned earlier, they don't create as many jobs as labor-intensive industries like coal mining, which Guizhou had traditionally relied on. And so experts say new markets are required to ensure that there is a creation of a sustainable model. Let's take a listen.
With more resources dumped into those high-tech AI-related industry for other areas related to, say, social welfare or consumer-facing services, they are lagging behind. They can't rely on the central government for all those fiscal support. So the model would only be sustainable if China could improve domestic demand.
Analysts say there is unlikely to be any kind of policy change in the next 2 to 3 years as the priority is still on AI and manufacturing. So Crystal, are the challenges also similar as to what I had heard from in Guizhou over at where you were at in Yiwu City?
So the opportunities and the challenges for villagers across China, they are largely the same. So I spoke to a professor at Fudan University. He has been to countless number of villages in the past 7 years, and these are the challenges that he told me. Now, firstly, in villages, unlike cities, there are often unwritten informal rules. What's yours? What's mine? What's ours? And what's shared? And that means that policymakers would have to make sure that income derived from shared spaces have to be shared across the village residents equally. Now, secondly, he also warned against villagers cannibalizing each other. For example, villagers should make sure that they are not pushing out the same product or the same idea. Because if that happens, any potential profits from visitors, they would be dispersed and nobody stands to gain from that. Now, to conclude our chat, tens of thousands of villages across China are set to be upgraded. But these villagers, like you said, would have to know and learn how to operate on their own. There's only so much that the government can do, or in fact should do. So I'm sure for both Sihui and myself, we would be looking out from Beijing and Shanghai, looking across the country, continuing to examine the sustainability of China's rural renewal strategies. Oteli?
I certainly look forward to part 2 of this China rural revitalization from Crystal tomorrow. Thanks so very much to our China correspondents, Crystal Chia in Shanghai and Tan Sihui in Beijing. Okay, time now for another break, but coming up next on East Asia Tonight, Chinese developers look to expand beyond their home turf as they peddle their wares at one of the world's biggest gaming conventions.
Malaysia is holding a series of state elections where partners at the federal level are rivals at the ballot box.
At the federal level, PH and DN work very well. But when it comes to the elections, we have two different political ideologies.
Will this widen the rifts in the coalition government?
UMNO members or leaders still go head-to-head with DAP leaders.
And is Malaysia headed for early elections?
They will apply pressure on Anwar to call for early general elections so they can ride the wave.
Insight, Thursday on CNA.
This week on Singapore Hour, can you believe this wildlife paradise is just a boat ride from the city?
Every tour that we do, we're constantly learning more about the different wildlife here.
Or this oasis right in the heart of it?
At the end of the day, this is what it's all about, finding a place that truly feels like home.
Discover Singapore's green side.
Lizzie's back home!
On Singapore Hour, Friday on CNA.
The first thing in the morning as Asia wakes up to a new day. Get up to speed with major events shaping lives in the region and other parts of the world.
Putting things in perspective with eye-opening reports and expert analysis as a new era of global politics breeds power struggles and shifting alliances.
We get to the heart of the matter and take stock of the issues you're invested in with on-the-ground reports and wall-to-wall coverage. Viewing it all from a regional lens because we put Asia first.
Saturday on Japan Hour, Cycle Around Japan heads to Ehime, where rivers, lakes and seas flow with nature's bounty.
Wow, we got a whole lot of them.
Yeah, when life is this blessed, how do the locals unwind? Japan Hour, Saturday on CNA.
Japan Hour is brought to you by Sumitomo Corporation. MUFG, committed to empowering a brighter future. Zip Air, all flights, all seats, free high-speed Wi-Fi available. And IHI.
Everyone look at their social media like, oh, my social media is gonna get banned.
We have enough evidence to tell us children are being harmed through social media.
In this two-part special, I find out what it means to keep kids off social media. What did it take to say, I'm going to sue the government? Talking Point, Sunday on CNA.
Thousands of gamers, developers and investors were in Shanghai this weekend for ChinaJoy. That's one of the world's biggest gaming conventions. It's also where Chinese game makers are increasingly looking to the world to sell their products. Bong Sin-ying with the story.
This is ChinaJoy, one of Asia's biggest gaming and digital entertainment shows where more than 1,000 games compete for attention amid giant screens, packed booths and plenty of noise. But behind the spectacle, this is also where overseas studios come looking for Chinese players and Chinese developers look to the world.
Returning visitors come for the atmosphere and the chance to play before launch. Publishers and platforms, including Tencent, NetEase, Blizzard, and PlayStation, anchor the main halls, with hardware makers courting gamers too.
我觉得国内的话，可能还是在摸着石头过河吧。我觉得很多创新点也好，就是很多，包括今年有很多国内的那种独立游戏，我觉得做的都非常好。但是我希望还是能像那种像黑神话、悟空这种的大型的3A， 更多的出现在外国人的视野中。
That appetite sits inside a domestic market of 684 million users. Sales reached nearly 189 billion yuan, or 27 billion US dollars, in the first half of this year, a 12% year-on-year increase. This Turkish developer came after seeing interest from Asian players.
Positive. Even in the first hours, we got some people coming and saying we are a local publisher, your game looks very good fit for Chinese audience. So we exchanged WeChat and so on.
This year's theme is Level Up with AI, and it's more than a slogan. Industry figures say more than 86% of Chinese game companies now use AI in development, just as overseas revenue from Chinese-made games is growing more than twice as fast as the domestic market.
The outward push is already paying off. Chinese game makers earned some 12 billion US dollars overseas in the first half of the year, with the US, Japan, and South Korea dominating top target markets. Producer Wang returned to ChinaJoy, hoping to find an international investor.
新的机遇就是海外的投资，反正前2年还算运气好，就是我们前年在这边有谈拢一个泰国的投资人，然后去年在这边有谈拢一个新加坡的投资人，虽然最后都因为一些他们的原因没有谈成，但我们今年还是抱着希望再来这里。
AI here is not confined to production. In a new hands-on zone called Next Play, visitors can test AI-powered characters, interactive storytelling, and generative content.
AI 一个是 AI 插帧，一个是游戏里 AI 助手啊，就这2样其实都是用来提升这个玩家的玩游戏的体验还有流畅度的。其实我觉得这是一个很好的趋势，包括以后可以让 AI 作为一个陪伴啊之类的，就是有些时候会感觉有些孤独，然后 AI 作为陪伴的话会比较好玩。
AI may help Chinese studios build faster, and new partnerships may carry their games further. But the real test for developers is making something players want to come back to. Wang Xingying, CNA, Shanghai.
Now, a viral social media trend is pushing young men to increase their testosterone levels, either naturally through diet, for example, or by taking synthetic hormones. Well, my colleague Poh Kok Ing explains the pursuit of so-called male optimization.
A fascination with testosterone is growing, especially among younger men in affluent societies. So much so there's now a name for this phenomenon, T-maxing. Now, the thinking goes that if testosterone, the primary male sex hormone, is essential for sexual function, muscle building, and higher energy levels, then it must be true that the more testosterone you have, the healthier you are, more virile, more masculine, and some believe smarter and more successful in life. But doctors say a wide range of testosterone levels is considered normal. In fact, there's no single universal cutoff because T levels vary with age. What's typically considered normal by doctors for an adult man is between 300 and 800 nanograms per deciliter of blood. But everyone has a different baseline level, so it doesn't mean that someone who is 700 is healthier or stronger or smarter than someone who has 300. Now, typically, a testosterone count is not part of a routine health screening unless the person is experiencing symptoms of low T, such as a low sex drive, erectile dysfunction, infertility, fatigue, or loss of muscle mass. Now, there's a ton of advice online about how to maximize your testosterone. Some push for natural remedies like exercises to reduce body fat, getting enough sleep, staying off alcohol, and managing stress levels. There are also products marketed as natural T enhancers, though the evidence is generally mixed or weak. Now, some T-maxers choose to take in testosterone directly through injections, pills, or gels.
In Hong Kong, you can buy testosterone from some pharmacies without having doctor's prescription, mostly testosterone gel. So young people now are buying them as to make themselves more masculine in their appearance. Now, for example, to have bigger muscles and have more body and facial hair. But what they may not know are some of the side effects. First, the loss of hair on their head. And second, infertility, which can be irreversible. So when a person now takes testosterone externally, our brain now can detect that the testosterone levels are sufficient, and then our brain will reduce or shut down now our body's own testosterone production. So if you want to raise your testosterone levels, now the best advice is to do that under the supervision of a specialist.
Now, there is another trend that's related to T-maxing, looks maxing. Now, you can think of T-maxing as a subset of looks maxing. T-maxers are primarily concerned with testosterone level and its supposed benefits. Looks maxing is a broader umbrella where people focus on the physical attractiveness from their face to their height as the key to success in life. We're not talking about simple grooming like having a skincare routine, but something that's potentially more extreme.
At the more extreme end, people buy into the idea that your success in life is determined by your physical attractiveness, like your jawline or your height, and especially success in dating. And we don't have official data, but certainly it's becoming more visible in online forums. Young men or young people in generally, they spend an incredible amount of time on social media, and they're exposed to a lot of appearance and body-focused content. You know, there's an endless stream on, you know, seemingly perfect images. In my practice, I have seen a young Chinese man, early 20s. He had just completed his NS, and he went to China and spent about 50,000 Singapore dollars on having his legs surgically broken, the bone structure broken, and then lengthened, because he had a concern that he wasn't tall enough. And when you start going down into that rabbit hole, it's like, you know, whack-a-mole. There's always another feature you can, you know, seemingly improve in your appearance. And so it becomes that endless cycle of wanting to fix more and more to increase your self-worth. So that's the real issue.
And this wraps up Monday's edition of East Asia Tonight. Don't forget your headlines anytime at cna.asia, and you can find our stories and reports on Facebook and YouTube. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.